Okay, I have a lot of shit to say right now. So this news story came out this week. Military contractors pitch unprecedented prison plan for detained immigrants. Subheading, Erik Prince wants to cut a deal to transport detainees from the US to El Salvador. You might be asking, who's Erik Prince? Maybe even what's a military contractor? And I will answer those questions, but first I want to talk about this plan that Erik Prince has and that he is going to pitch to the White House, or did pitch to the White House. The proposal says it would target criminal illegal aliens and would attempt to avoid legal challenges by designating part of the prison in El Salvador as American territory, to avoid the legal challenges of taking away people's right to due process. Erik Prince said, I have a brilliant idea to circumvent people's rights provided by the Constitution. And not only is Erik Prince saying this is a brilliant idea, he's also saying you should make American taxpayers pay me to facilitate it, or pay my company to facilitate it, and facilitate all the logistics of what it's essentially kidnapping people and sending them to a torture black site in El Salvador. Now you might be wondering, why can this random Erik guy waltz into the White House and say, you should make the American taxpayer pay me to do this? He's actually done it before. He's pitched a lot of interesting ideas, such as when he sensed that the U.S. would support a coup against the Maduro government in Venezuela. He said, I have a great plan. I could do it. Me and my boys could do it. And it's because he has been hired and contracted by the U.S. government to do what normally would be done by the U.S. military. Except instead of letting the U.S. military do it, it's a private company it's just a little different, okay? And I'm not saying that the U.S. military should be doing these deportations instead. I'm saying that a private company with no accountability for any human rights violations that might take place would be a bad thing. It would be a bad idea. Especially companies run by Erik Prince, because it used to be called Blackwater, and now it's called Constellas. They had to rename their company a couple times. Maybe because some of the stuff they didn't want to be Blackwater anymore. In 2007 and earlier, the US had sent a bunch of contractors to Iraq. We had like thousands and thousands of contractors in Iraq. One thing that they were doing was guarding US State Department employees. And in 2007, these Blackwater they're essentially mercenaries, are guarding U.S. State Department employees, and then they just start firing on civilians in this square. And they killed 20 Iraqi civilians. Now that incident was so bad and sparked so much just outrage that 4 Blackwater employees were actually convicted of crimes in the United States for what they did. But they were pardoned by none other than Donald Trump, who is Erik Prince's friend. And I know you might be saying, like, oh, isn't it a conflict of interest to have such close personal ties to people who make millions of dollars off the U.S. government giving them contracts? And I would say yes. And then I would also point to Elon Musk. He is a huge government contractor. And I'm not saying that the U.S. military is the most accountable body in the world. They're not. It's not. But private military contractors face almost always zero accountability for what they do. And they do some bad stuff. For example, we had military contractors, I don't think it was Blackwater, working as interrogators in Abu Ghraib prison, which was a torture black site run by the U.S. military in Iraq during the war. And it became very famous for the horrible crimes against humanity carried out by the U.S. military. There were U.S. military interrogators and prison guards at Abu Ghraib. And the military, whether they always use it or not, and they don't, has a system of punishment and accountability of some sort. And so the U.S. military interrogators did face some sort of punishment, not all of them, but some of them did. And virtually nothing happened to any of the private contracted interrogators at Abu Ghraib. And the US is addicted to private military contracting because it's hard to market to the American people that we need to send more American troops. And if a military contractor dies abroad, it doesn't get counted in troop deaths in wars. So it's easier for administrations to just contract it out to private military contractors. And it helps when the head of a private military contractor is your friend Erik Prince. So that's why Erik Prince felt so comfortable being like, I'll do the crimes. Me and my company will do the crimes for you, President Trump. The US loves to contract out things that they know that they won't have to face accountability for. And also, what else do I say besides the elite? Look out for the elite. Like Donald Trump, millionaires, billionaires, they're friends. They're like this. So of course, Donald Trump is giving his friends Elon and Erik work. And this stuff always gets folded in to the Pentagon budget, which happens every year. And Donald Trump said he's promising that the Pentagon budget will finally reach $1 trillion for the top line. And he's like directly referring to contracts like this, just handing out government contracts, because 50% of the Pentagon budget goes to private companies. 50%. And may I remind you, that's all your money. I know you all just did your taxes this week. It's your money. And they're using it for this. So we have to resist these deportations as they are, which are just violations of our constitutional rights to due process. And also just wake up to the thought that Erik Prince and these rich people that own the companies that the government is contracting to are saying, we see you're having legal hurdles, violating the Constitution. We can help you get around that. It's important for you all to understand what tactics the government uses to keep things from us. One of those tactics is hiring government contractors, private companies, with your money. It's your money to avoid accountability for what they're doing. That is what Erik Prince is proposing.